everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything.
Rooted men, good morning. Happy Wednesday morning. Pastor Tom, Firmly Rooted Ministries, and it is good to have you on board. There is a grass cutting company that started cutting grass across the street at 7:30. Is that kind of weird? I don't know. It seems kind of weird. But all right. At least it's not running right now. So the blower and everything isn't whirling and whistling through the windows. But again, great to have you on board. We're now in 2 Corinthians chapter 1. And so we're going to pull that up in a second. But let's see who's on board besides this guy, me. I'm out there on X. Chris Connolly, good morning. Ken Gooch, good morning, fellow brothers in arms. Bert Reggiani, good morning. And there's about like 13, 14 other people out there. All right, maybe they'll be popping in while I'm doing the devotions. It sometimes takes a little time for the software to catch up. All right, but let me pull up the reading. Steve did the beginning, the intro to the letter, and one of the things that we see is that there's some suffering going on. Quite clear that as Paul writes 2 Corinthians, which could be the fourth letter to the Corinthians, because, well, there's two letters that were never found or were never brought into the scriptures. But you go back to Steve's reading and you begin to realize that he is talking about affliction and comfort, affliction and comfort, affliction and comfort. It's because they're going through a lot of affliction. I mean, remember when Paul started his ministry, God said he will learn what it means to suffer for my name's sake. Can you imagine? Can you imagine that being your epitaph, that being the title that God puts over your life, that Paul is going to suffer for the Christian faith? This is a man who was a Pharisee and hated everybody but religious Jews. And now he's going out into pagan societies, loving them so much and wanting them to know Jesus so badly that he's willing to be beaten, stoned, treated horribly, whipped, chased out of town, jailed. But we're going to go on in verse 6. If we are afflicted, it is for your comfort and salvation. We're being afflicted by demonic forces and because they come to steal, kill, and destroy. Because what we're doing, we're preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ. We're bringing comfort and salvation to people. And if we are comforted, it is for your comfort, which you experience when you patiently endure the same sufferings we suffer. He seems to talk about this parallel, that even when we face suffering for the name of Christ, the God of the universe will bring the spirit of comfort to the heart and soul of the individual suffering, because he knows, because he understands. I mean, the book of Hebrews says that Jesus suffered in every way, just like we suffer. Hence, we have a Savior who can relate to us, right? Verse 7, our hope for you is unshaken, for we know that as you share in our suffering, you will also share in our comfort. For we do not want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia. Listen to what Paul says. This is some heavy stuff. We go through a lot in this life. We go through a lot in this world. Physical illnesses, hurting children, lives going the wrong direction, and worse. Listen to what he says. For we do not want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia. For we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. Anybody want to highlight that? Make that a memory verse? You know, this is the part of Christianity that nobody really wants to be aware of. That out every day, right now, today, there are people risking their lives to share Jesus, having their heads lopped off, being killed, having their families taken away, being jailed. Paul is saying that he and his crew went to Asia to preach the gospel, and they were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself. Indeed, we felt that we had received the sentence of death. We thought we were going to die. It got so bad that we thought we were going to die. But that was to make us rely not on ourselves, but on God who raises the dead. Ooh. See, I'm not sure. the average American can even think of a world, or an average Christian thinking that, beyond having a hangnail or some kind of issue, that we would suffer for the name of Christ, and to the point where we would think that we were going to die. And then after experiencing that, rather than cursing God, saying it taught us to rely on him. Can you imagine having nothing else to rely on but God? You don't have the wherewithal to escape. You don't have the wherewithal to buy yourself out of there. You don't have the wherewithal to do anything. And so you have to rely 100% on God while evil men are attacking. We relied on God who raises the dead. He delivered us from such a deadly peril, and he will deliver us. He delivered us. This is the guy that watched jail cells open, right? And can you imagine sometimes Paul saying, wait, last time, God, you opened a jail cell. Today you're not. I don't get you, right? We think that these guys were like superhuman, spiritual, like they didn't have doubts and fears like you and I do. They do, and Paul did. Because if God rescued him like he did in Acts 16 every time, we wouldn't have a story about Paul suffering. The fact is, there are days when God opened up jail cells and he walked out, and there were days when he didn't. Just like our lives. Sometimes it appears like God's not doing what he says he's going to do, but listen, he's faithful. The message here is God was faithful. The one who raises the dead, he did deliver us. We will be delivered. You also must help us by prayer. Woo! So that many will give thanks on our behalf for the blessings granted to us through the prayers of many. We learned that when you're relying on God, the only thing you have is his word and prayer. And that's what they relied on. And that's what we have to rely on. We firmly root ourselves in God's unconditional love and his truth. Those are the ways that God communicates to us. We use prayer to communicate back to him. And Paul is saying, even in my darkest moments, when I thought we were going to die, God was faithful and he was there with us. We survived, and the ministry continues. All right, let me pull myself out of here. Let's see if anybody else came on board while all of you were, let's see, did I mention Bert? Yes, I think so. Bert Reggiani. Good morning, gentlemen. They have to make up for the rain day. Ezekiel, good morning. All right, I think that's it. Kimberly and I are going to be packing and getting ready to go. I want to thank some of the guys who have agreed to do some devotions and some prayers, so I don't have to do them while I'm on vacation. So that's awesome. Thank you for those of you who are getting onto Amazon and purchasing that devotional book. I think it'd be a great devotional book for the month of December as we look at the messianic prophecies of Jesus. And I'm certain, for gift for friends and family. But at any rate, thank you for those of you who are purchasing it, and just remember to get back onto Amazon and do a review so that those reviews start to stack up on each other. All right, blessings on your day. Make it a firmly rooted day, and may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.